In this week's episode, we have Chuck Penner with Leftfield Commodities joining us once again. Chuck talks about yellow peas, the climb in new crop values, and hey, could it get even better yet? Yellow pea growers, you're going to want to stay tuned for that. We talk about lentils, red lentils specifically. Of course, we talk about wheat and weather. Lots of good stuff with Chuck Penner in this week's episode. Hang in there, tune in, and we'll see you soon. Hey folks, welcome to the What the Futures podcast, where we break down complex market trends into simple, actionable advice. It's your quick guide to better farming decisions. Hey there, folks. Welcome back to the What the Futures podcast. This is episode number 29. As always, recorded in the UPL studio, and it is our last week of Batalium giveaways. It's been a great 4 weeks with UPL. Battalium spread across the prairie provinces. This is our last week. We have one more winner, so stay tuned in this episode. We'll get to that a little bit later on. And we got Wave coming from UPL next week. So it doesn't stop, folks. Last week of Battalion, moving on to Wave for June. Of course, What the Futures podcast is your weekly dose of clarity in the complex world of crop markets, agriculture. I like to just think that we break down what's happening across the prairie provinces, and hopefully some of that translates to some good advice and some better decisions on your crop marketing for your farm. Of course, I'm your host, Ryan Denis. I have spent my career as a grain buyer, grain marketing advisor, analyst, coach, basically worked with growers across the prairies over the last, 12, 13, 14 years, something like that, and taking the show on the road here with the What the Futures podcast. We have a great episode. I've got Chuck Penner joining us here this week. Of course, he joined us back at the early part of May. So much has changed over the last 4 weeks. With Chuck, we're going to talk about lentils, number one. We had a great question come in, so we'll talk about lentils. If you're a yellow pea grower, stay tuned for what Chuck has to say about upside in yellow peas. Of course, we're going to cover the wheat market and obviously some weather as well. So this episode with Chuck from Leftfield Commodities. We've got our regular segments as well. The mailbag just burst full here once again this week. Lots of great questions. I think I take 5 of them this week and tackle those. And of course, we will do our best to wrap up the episode with a healthy serving of veggies because, hey, it's the right thing to do. You got to eat your veggies. My big one for this week, I might stand on a chair at some point this episode, but it's just marketing weed in general. It's just marketing. It's honestly, folks, there's so much going on right now. And it's execution time. It's time to take everything you've done here this winter. I'll get to it more in the episode. But anyways, here we go. Of course, each episode is brought to you by John Deere. So we thank John Deere for their support. I'm going to be recording with Nick Horeb. I hope I said that right, Nick. I'll work on it for next week, but we'll record next week. Nick is the creator and founder of Harvest Profit, which John Deere acquired. And I'm looking forward to this conversation because I've been wanting to do this for a long time, but I've been focused on Harvest Profit the last couple of days here, updating yields, and creating my 2025 crop plan. I hope you're doing the same thing with your platform. And Nick is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to financials and healthy financials, all the number stuff. I'm excited to have Nick join the show next week. And hey, we'll see what we get into in the future here. But anyways, let's get after it for this episode. Of course, housekeeping is what I've moved it to the front of the episode because there's just a few things here that I always want to touch on. And I'm not sure who all hangs in to the very end, to be honest with you. But the most important thing for this week is there's no YouTube video until after the weekend. So it's sometime early next week. I don't even have the exact date yet, but we're making some changes We've obviously changed the studio. We've changed the sound. We've changed the lighting. We have some more changes coming, and the editor just needs a little bit of time to get things set up here. So YouTube video is going to be in early next week. So I'll try to send that out in an email as well. So stay tuned for that one. It is obviously, if you're hearing this, it's on the podcast. Last week I asked you guys, you're tuning in on Apple for the most part. 90% of you are tuning in on Apple Podcasts. And I said, get us some stars, some rating. It doesn't have to be 5 stars. And, I was humbled here as I was checking out if we did get some more ratings, which we did. And we got a 2-star rating. So it took away my perfect 5 stars. And I thought, this darn show was perfect. I'm kidding. If you know me personally, you know what motivates me, right? And I'm always looking to improve and do better. But there was one problem. There's the stars, right? You need 1 to 5 stars, but there's no comments or nowhere to put a comment. So my ask is that if you could be so inclined to send me a message on social media, one of the channels, just send me a message and tell me what you think about the show. Now, I'm not talking to you, 2-star rating person. I'm just talking to folks, in general, tuning in to this week's podcast. I want to know what you think of the show. I want to know, how can we make it better? What could we improve on? And for now, I'm just going to assume that the 2-star person, they were just uncomfortable with marketing wheat. I've been asking you to sell wheat and they're just uncomfortable and they put down 2 stars. But hey, I don't know. So go give us some ratings on Apple and, send us some comments as well. I'd love to hear from you. I also want to thank you for listening to the What the Futures podcast. And when you're ready, if you want more in-depth analysis and recommendations, you can go and upgrade to the Lunchbox Crew, which the intake starts tomorrow, June 1st. This episode of What the Futures drops on the Friday. On Saturday, June 1st to the 9th, we have intake for the Lunchbox Crew. If you want more in-depth analysis, that's where you go, and check out the link for that. Now, just to wrap up housekeeping, I'm not going to talk about the playoff draft because not much has changed there. I am fearful, though. There's the 4th and 5th place teams are gaining momentum, and I'm a little bit worried. But I did have my songs of the week from YouTube Music, and I'm going to go, as you're wrapping up Plant 24, maybe you switch gears now to Spray 24. I'm going to put Start Me Up by the Stones because you're starting up the sprayer, you're getting out there, crossing those fields, and that's a good tune for spraying. So I'm going to go with Start Me Up. And then for the night shift crew, I know there's not as much night shift work in spraying. I guess it's when it's calm, and there's a lot of night spraying, but my brother and dad would not allow me to spray at night. I need to see all obstacles at all times because I need to know what I'm hitting. If I'm operating the sprayer, I need to know exactly what I've hit. And so night spraying doesn't work good for me. But for the night shift crew, we're going to go on Call on Me by Eric. I don't know if it's Prids or Prides, but anyways, Call on Me in the playlist. It's a good jam for the night shift crew. It'll get you going. It reminds me of being in high school. I think that song came out. All right. Of course, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on social medias. Again, folks, appreciate the interaction, the comments, everything you put out there. It is very motivating and helps me along. So let's move over now. Of course, we start the episodes with positive moments. And I've got a couple here. Well, number one, I took my family camping this last weekend. And there's 2 things that need to happen for me to have a successful camping trip. And I hope you can relate to this. And if you have some stories, funny stories of your camping adventures, send them in. I'm going to have to come up with a contest or something on that. But the 2 things that need to happen for my trip to be successful is, number one, when you get there, you're backing in the trailer. If you can, back it in successfully without any type of yelling or tension between you and your partner, you and your spouse, that's huge. That's a big part of kicking off your camping weekend or camping adventure, is backing that trailer in without any type of stress on your relationship with your partner. Okay. And we accomplished that. We backed that trailer in, that new to us trailer. We backed it in. We only had to pull up once and straighten out a little bit, and we were good. But like the people that came in around us, at one point, the neighbor guy, this guy's trying to back in his trailer. So the neighbor walks over and pulls the post that says your campsite sign, the post, pulls it out, throws it to the side. And I'm sitting there thinking, you have just insulted that guy backing in his trailer. Like, he sees that post. He wasn't even really flirting with it a whole bunch, but to just walk over and pull that post and like give a wave, like, there you go, helped you out. Ooh, man, if that happened to me, I'd be sticking that post back in right away. I got this. The second thing that needs to happen is on your way out of the campground, when you go and empty those tanks. All right. I've seen some phenomenal events when those tanks are being emptied. I've seen people in front of me where it's incredible. I once saw a lady in her pajamas with her arm all the way up, reaching into the tank. And, at 10:30 in the morning on a Sunday, there could be better things that you want to be doing. But anyways, we were good. Pulled the chute. Life was good. So a successful camping trip. No excitement on the departure either. So that was good. Second positive moment of the week is just all the questions coming in about marketing and wheat marketing specifically. I've got questions about pricing 2024 wheat, pricing 2025. What about basis? I see grain being sold in this rally. Super important. It's my hot topic of the week. And it just gets me excited and pumped up. So that's a positive moment, because I just think it's when you look back in 3 months, 6 months, the marketing you're doing now is just going to have such a positive impact to your farming bottom line. That's why it's going to enter into positive moments. And then to continue on with that momentum, the Lunchbox crew, which again starts tomorrow, it wasn't supposed to happen until the fall. Okay, I was legally bound until the fall. And so to be able to get this going for June 1st, it's exciting for me. And I think I wrote 13 years down here, but I spent 13 years doing crop marketing. I had to legally sit on the sidelines for 2 years. Now, don't feel bad for me. I made a choice. I was able to execute something special that very few entrepreneurs get to do. So that was very exciting for me. But through all that, I had to take a pause and honor some agreements. So if that's what I've been doing here the last little while. Now, I get to be a stay-at-home dad as well, right? I've got 2 small kids, and I've been able to spend the last couple of years at home with them. Finn's going to be 17 months old here right away. Will is 3 3.75, turning 4 in September. So that's just been something that I cherish, and I will cherish for the rest of my life. But I love the thrill of watching markets, giving advice, helping farms make decisions, hopefully better decisions, right? So this was a little unexpected to be able to start this up in June, and I'm pumped for that. When, those of you that follow me on like Snapchat or social media, like this all started back in August of 22, and I needed an outlet to talk about crop markets. So I'd make these Snapchat videos, and whoever was on my Snapchat would get my crop marketing updates or whatever you want to call them. But I needed an outlet. And then, I did that for a while. And then all of a sudden this podcast came to fruition, and the podcast became my outlet, and will continue to be my outlet as well. I get this like crop marketing stuff like building inside me, and I just want to tell folks, and my dad and my brother can only hear so much, right? And my father-in-law, and those that reach out to me. So anyways, it goes from Snapchat to a podcast / YouTube thing to now taking its shape of the Lunchbox Crew, which is just more detailed, more specific. And I don't know, I'm just pumped for that. So I know my positive moments have been long-winded the last couple of weeks, but I'm ready to rock and roll with that and looking forward to it. So now the next segment for this week, switching gears here once again, is just talking about prices that are exciting, and some of the stories around it as well, some of the news. So I probably got to come up with a name for this darn segment at some point, but just basically more market information. And I know you have a lot of this already, but there's just kind of three key things I wrote down from a storyline perspective. So, the Russian agency ICAR, they reduced that Russian wheat crop to 81.5 million tons. That's 4 weeks in a row now of reduction there. And again, we started in the 90s, and Chuck and I talk about it here in a few minutes. But there was that U.S. planting, that story of a delay. It's just not there. I was a little bit bullish corn. I said it last week. I thought that the planting delays could be something real here come June 1st. It just doesn't look like it's going to turn into anything, and that's going to exit the market here as well. That if there was a little premium in there, that's going to start working itself out, in my opinion. Progress was really great, better than the 5-year average in most cases. So it's just not a story. We got rain in Russia and Ukraine in the forecast. We'll see what happens there. But those three storylines are going to lead to the hot topic about, why has the market peaked? And we'll talk about it in a second. But anyways, from a price perspective, those are my stories. But from a price perspective, new crop yellow peas, I'm seeing some 1250s now pop around the prairies, 1250 new crop yellow peas. Remember, we set a fishing expedition. We set a hook out there at 13 a couple weeks ago. And, on 13, I think we might have to lower our volume on that target just a little bit because Chuck's going to give us some insight here. And anyways, I want to highlight that we did make a move, 1250. And I just want to double check here. Yeah, that I know that I talked about the $10 wheat last week already for old crop. That's still out there, just more available. And new crop hard red spring wheat, CPS, the 9s, the 925s, the 950s, those have all been out there as well. So there's nothing really new on wheat, nothing really new on canola either. And other markets are a little bit quiet. So that's what I have for kind of noteworthy stories and prices for this week. Now, my hot topic of the week, and I'm going to freestyle this a little bit. I want to stand on my chair here, or like throw my chair, or like whatever I could do to kind of get your attention. Like, I don't know if I like stand up and like wave a whole bunch, or shout. Maybe you turn up the volume in your vehicle at this time. Maybe like bust a light. I don't know. But I want your attention here, okay? So hopefully that's clear. And like, it's a little bit arrogant for me to say, why has the market peaked? Because I don't have a crystal ball, and I can't guarantee that the market has peaked in any way, shape, or form. But you start to look at what got us here. If you want to talk about the wheat rally, the corn rally, those things that got us here, if it's frost in Russia, if it's frost in Ukraine, if it's drought in those two countries, if it's, planting concerns in Western Canada, if it's planting concerns in the US, like whatever you want to put as your storyline to rally this thing, those things are slowly making their way out of the news cycle. And there isn't a frost in the forecast for Russia next week. The frost, more likely than not, is behind us. Okay, knock on wood for us as well. But, the dryness is still kind of there, but there's rains in the forecast. Now, again, we'll see in the next couple days here. But, wheat futures, I'm recording this on Wednesday, May 29th. Wheat futures have pulled back a little tiny bit. And so it's a little bit arrogant to say, hey, the high of the wheat market is here. But history shows us time and time again that in May and in June, quite often, is when wheat markets will peak. And the stories that got us here in this rally are starting to unwind a little bit. And you say, well, Ryan, hey, there's other things that can happen. The crop's not made. 100%. You're 100% right. But you're also not moving to 100% sold either. So things can happen. You can get heat. You can get a weather event, heat event on U.S. corn crops. You can get lots of weather stuff yet in front of us. But the wheat crops, they're a resilient group for the most part. Spring wheat's quite resilient. And we need those next stories to come and support this market and move it higher. We need Russia's crop to go from 81.5 million tons now to 78. And what happens if, because that's like us going out and trying to look at the U.S. winter wheat crop and our spring wheat crop and coming up with a total. Like, that's pretty wild, right? To come up with a total and come up with a number there and what production is. What happens if they raise that production total in 2 or 3 weeks? What happens if it goes from 81.5 to 82.5, 83? Well, now the market's overdone. It rallied too much, and you get those steep sell-offs. So my plea, what I want you to, think about here is, what got us to this point, and is this going to continue? What's going to make this continue? What's going to come here and push this along? Now, you have been training all winter long for this. If you've been a follower of the What the Futures podcast, we have implemented strategies every week this winter. We talked about doing our homework. We talked about getting signed up with a financial plan like Harvest Profit. We've talked about learning new contracts. How do I sell and protect myself against a buyout? We talked about how, don't panic during the winter for marketing. Wait until the spring. Let's get these money managers, these big shorts, let's get them rattled here so they get out of their short positions. And by golly gee, that's what's been happening, right? I don't have a crystal ball. I can't sit here and say, everyone buckle up. We got a big rally coming in July. All I look at is seasonal trends, history. What's in the last 20 years? How often does the wheat market peak in May or June? Is that relevant to 2024? What got us here? What's going to get us to that next level? And that's what I sit here and say, geez, okay. What's going to, we've sold wheat every week here. We're selling wheat every week. And every time we sell it, it's been at a new high, and we just high five and celebrate. And like you, we're doing cartwheels in the fields at times, right? But we celebrate selling at higher prices. And I hope that I can sell more at higher prices. That's what I'm wishing on here. But at the end of the day, you got some great pricing in front of you. I don't know what's going to drive this higher. I'm trying to find that story. Again, I think it could be India importing wheat, could be the next level up. But there's no confirmation. There's no real storyline there yet. I think Russia's production could get pulled back a little bit. It has to. Some private analysts are already in the high 70s. That's already into this market, in my opinion. So you got to print a lower number to rally this even further. And you're not selling all your crop. You're not selling 100%. If you want to figure out how to do that, then reach out to me and I can guide you in that. But it's just not what we do. As farmers, we don't sit here and say, I'm going to sell all my wheat crop at the first part of June and call it a day, even though history tells us that that's a pretty good strategy. It doesn't happen like that. So my big topic here is you've worked hard all year, figuring out new strategies, figuring out your financials, working towards the execution of your plan. right now. So why has the market peaked? Well, we'll see. We'll see if it has. Time will tell. That's the great thing about markets is we're going to know. We're going to know. But it wouldn't surprise me here, folks, if we look back and see this as a market peak. So you can argue against it. You can debate it all you want. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do like selling wheat in this rally, selling corn, selling some of the barley as well. And hey, time will tell. But I hope you're executing your plan, getting some stuff done, and marketing with confidence. All right, marketing with confidence. All right, that's my hot topic of the week. I was going to attempt to stand on this chair, but it's a stool, and I'm scared of what the results might be. All right, folks, that's it for Hot Topic. Let's turn it over now to Chuck with Leftfield Commodities. All right, I'm here with Chuck Penner from Leftfield Commodities. Chuck, how's your month of May going?
Well, it's been pretty good, I guess. We had lots of rain here, and today's a beautiful drying day. It's like 22 degrees and 30 click winds, and so everybody's pretty happy about that. And out in this eastern prairies here, anyway.
Yeah, at my backyard, we had a really nice warm day yesterday. Of course, we've had lots of precipitation, but the concern was dryness and drought, or the winter drought expanding into the spring, and that's just not the case. Look, I think the last time you were on the show was like first week of May. Look what's happened weather-wise and even markets-wise between the last time you were on the show. It's been a pretty stellar month for the most part.
Yeah. There's always that old joke about, what's the difference between a flood and a drought, and it's about 1/4 of an inch.
Yeah.
And well, we had a heck of a lot more than 1/4 of an inch in May, and it's funny because on Twitter or whatever they're calling it now, you start to suggest that well, maybe the drought cycle is broken, and wow, there's people who get cranky when you suggest things are getting better. They just want to be miserable all the time, I guess. And
it's too bad.
And there are exceptions. There are still areas
always
where it hasn't broken, and that little brown spot on the map, that's me, and whatever that. Yeah, so I get that, but it's just funny.
We've had that here as well. We have a stretch. I call it like Highway 14, Highway 13 heading east. Been very, very wet, and those guys are in the mud every day, and it's no fun being in the mud. But you look at the prairies. How many acres do we have across the prairies, Chuck, or Canada's?
70 in Western Canada, about 70 million.
Yeah, so 70 million acres. There's going to be a few in there that are certainly not perfect, but
yeah. And the crop is, I'm not trying to suggest the crop is made or anything like that. Heck, it's barely in the ground, or some of it not even, but yeah.
Yeah, what I like to see, obviously a dry year last year, dry winter. This is a bit of a relief, a nice pattern. But I'm also seeing the odd guy will text me or message me that they're out spraying their wheat crops now, or they're out spraying their barley crops, and they look pretty good. Like, again, it's just nice to see that. So,
well, there's certain code that you have to understand, and I learned this growing up. A certain code is when someone, and it's generalizing, when you say it's pretty good, like that means it's fabulous.
Yeah,
you got to understand the language of talking about crops. So.
So in Western Canada, is there anything on your radar weather-wise for concern, or is it more global?
Yes, actually, too much moisture, and particularly for pulse crops, for lentils and for peas. The others, I think, will be drinking this up pretty good. But it's always a bit of a knife edge. Too little and too much for and chickpeas too, I would throw into there too. Bit of a knife edge about too little and too much. So it could easily tip into that too much. And I was talking to somebody earlier this week, and they were already talking about some yellow lentils, and I'm going, that's not good. This early, that's really not good.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to save that, but I have a lentil question for later on, so that might give me some guidance there. Okay, so maybe too much across the prairies. What about globally? Is there anything on your radar that's changed the last couple of weeks?
Well, we've been looking at, for example, Western Australia as being a key location because most of what Australia exports, wheat-wise, canola-wise, barley-wise, comes out of Western Australia, and it's been very dry there.
Okay.
And now looks like this week they might be getting a little bit of rain there, so some relief in sight there. So the one thing about that is I think some farmers had already switched away from planting canola and put in cereals because it was so dry. So of course you're not going to get that back, but maybe a bit of an improvement there. And then of course what's going on in Russia and Ukraine with drought and frost, and those estimates are still coming down, and for a number of crops. So that's it's not just a wheat story. It's a bunch of different crops in that neck of the woods. Parts of Europe starting to get too wet, and sounds like they're spraying fungicides like crazy out there, and to try and keep the crop doing okay. Of course, Europe's a big place, so some better, some worse, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. What about anything in the U.S. that stands out to you weather-wise? Or?
Well, the planting delays are largely a non-story. People want it. We're trying to talk that up a few weeks ago, and it's kind of looks like they've caught up, and there's no real drought to speak of at this point in the season. There are, again, the little brown spots here and there, but for the most part, and that includes up into North Dakota and Montana, where they're growing a lot of the same crops that we are. Those areas the crop is going in nice and quick there, and so those areas are looking fairly favorable. So if we're looking for a weather rally, it's probably, well, again, still May, but at this point anyway, it's not coming out of the States.
The way that I've been kind of viewing this is, I feel over the last couple weeks, you had that potential delay in planting in the U.S., which just didn't really materialize, or not to a major extent anyway. You had the same thing in the prairies with maybe a delay here or there, not perfect. I feel like now the spring weather markets, again, I don't have a crystal ball, but I feel like we're going to turn the corner here very quickly, if maybe we have already started. And I'll even throw Russia in the mix here as well. Like the frost events now, I guess, knock on wood, are behind us, right? The frost event's not coming. It's behind us now. So I almost feel like from a weather perspective, if weather was helping us rally, we're kind of turning the corner on that now, where we sit here and say, oh, well, that's behind us. That didn't come to fruition. This is actually looking pretty good, and that'll be behind us. And now it's the next one. What does the July heat look like? Or is there a couple weeks that dry out, so on and so forth. But
you're right. We're starting to run out of bullets in that picture. So
yeah. So let's talk about wheat for a second. Wheat's been on a heck of a run. Like I said on last week's podcast, farmers should be doing, or are doing, cartwheels out in the field. While the drill fails, they're just doing cartwheels because the market's climbed so
in the mud,
so nicely here. Profit margins are back, and into fall of 2025 as well. What are you seeing in this wheat market? What stands out to you, and anything for us to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks here?
Right. Yeah, it's been really good to watch this. I think the rally that we've seen is justified based on the reductions in the Russian and in the Ukrainian crop. The one thing that's continuing on there is there's still areas that are really hit bad by drought. And so we could see a few more losses yet from that. But you're right, the frost is done. Like hopefully they're not going to get any frost in June.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's behind us, and now it's just sort of tallying it up. And it is possible, it has happened in the past, where these predictions kind of run ahead of themselves, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so you can overshoot the crop losses to the downside, and then kind of when it comes in, we've had that in Western Canada before. I think it was in 22. whatever is everybody's
21.
It's looking terrible again, and then it started to come in and go, oh, well, that's not as bad as I thought it would be. So you can go either way, but that could be happening there as well too. But yeah, certainly that is affecting the wheat market and has affected the wheat market. The estimates have dropped from I guess they started around 90. No, last year was 92, so we started around 90. Give or take. And now we're down closer to 80. So that's a big 10 million tons is a pretty big chunk, especially when you look at global wheat stocks, and they've been dropping over the last 5 years, more or less steadily. So, we got complacent. We thought, okay, we can keep making it. We can keep making it as long as Russia is there. And Russia has really been the factor in the wheat market that's kept the lid on those prices for the last few years. They had these couple of record crops in a row. So now when that particular factor, you take that out and you flip it around, it makes things a little bit more nervous, or it should make the market a little bit more nervous. But yeah, some of the other pictures, the Canadian and the U.S. situation, I think we're going to be seeing some pretty good crops there. But it wouldn't surprise me if this rally kind of runs out of steam at this point. I don't know that those estimates are going to get a whole lot smaller at this point, unless North American weather turns like 35 degrees, for a month at a time or something like that, right? But otherwise, I think we're in, we've kind of done what we can do with given the demand that we want or that we've seen.
It's dropped, let's say 10 million tons for argument's sake for Russian production there. The market today reflects that, right? Like for the most part, it reflects that. So are we going to see another reduction of 10 or 8 or 5 million tons or what's it going to be? Or does it bounce back a little bit, which happens more often than not?
The one thing is that if the estimates keep slipping, each million tons that you take off will probably have a larger impact than like if you take 5 million tons off of a 90 million ton Russian crop, it has this effect. If you take 5 million tons off an 80 million ton crop, it has a greater effect. So we don't have as much cushion or whatever in the market, and so once you get down to that certain level, it does tend to have a stronger impact on the market.
100%. Comes right out of exports too, right? So what about on the Ukraine side? Like Ukraine's been suffering some dryness here. Is there anything more alarming to their production totals, or?
Well, they've lost some tons as well. I think for Ukraine it was actually more the frost event.
Okay.
And so it's taken some wheat out of production, but it's also taken some canola out of production too. So the crop earlier, I think, was like before all of this, there were some very early predictions that be 4.1, 4.2 million tons, and now it's closer to 3.5 or 3.6. And that canola all goes into Europe, all goes into Europe, right? So that's from Ukraine. I don't know if it's the wheat that's as big of a concern or is as noticeable. But I think on some of the other crops, it sure is.
Okay. Well, something to watch there for sure. Okay, great. Switching gears now a little bit here to yellow peas. I was mentioning that I noticed new crop bids were climbing just a little bit, and you mentioned that old crop prices were starting to slip. Let's talk about that a little bit here.
Well, you've got a little bit of a spread between old crop and new crop peas. And so as you get closer to the end of the year, those are going to come together. And so either they come together at the higher side, where old crop values are, or they come together at the new crop side. So I think we're probably going to meet somewhere in the middle. I think that's kind of how the old crop and new crop are going to come together. But no, there are some interesting dynamics in that market. And one of them is the situation in Russia and Ukraine. So the frost, the drought, those kind of things. Again, there were last year's Russian crop was about 4.6, 4.7 million tons, a record. And so this year, the early predictions were 5 to 5.2. So a pretty sizable increase.
Yeah.
Now the estimates that I'm seeing are closer to 4 million tons.
Okay.
So you take about 1 million tons of peas out of the picture there. So suddenly you go from an increase to a decrease from last year. And then Ukraine will probably lose maybe 150,000 tons as well, from what the early predictions were. So that may be one of the factors that's causing the new crop bids to warm up a little bit, just based on less supplies for competing in the Indian market and so on. So that's kind of what's going on there. And then you get the Indian market. Like right now, we're exporting we're very, very little yellow peas, because yellow pea prices in India are still pretty low. Once they opened the borders, the prices crashed, and then they kind of stayed down there. So we can't push a whole lot more in there at those prices. But what is happening in India is that Desi chickpea prices, they're just going to the moon right now.
Okay.
And so that's the substitute. We've talked about that before, I think. That's the substitute. And so those prices are really taking off. And so that is really raises the potential that India will extend that zero tariffs on yellow peas beyond October 31st. So that was the last deadline that we heard. They keep bumping it, right? So October 31st was the last deadline that we heard. So there's a really good chance that they will just kick that can down the road again and keep. So they'll keep importing yellow peas through, well into our 24-25 season.
Nice.
And it's interesting. Like I just ran their numbers, their import numbers. So they imported in March, they imported 670,000 tons of peas. India. A good chunk, most of that was, Canada had the largest share, but Russia was in there too, and Ukraine and Turkey and, France. If you look at India's pea imports for their marketing year, which finished in March, it's kind of like this. It's the classic hockey stick thing. So it's just like, the last 3 months of the year, all of a sudden it just goes like this. And they imported just under 1.2 million tons of peas just in 3 months. And that's, it's not a record, but it's way better than it has been for at least 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
So if that demand continues, that's going to be really favorable. Again, another reason why new crop bids are probably seeing more strength. Right now, China is still kind of a slow buyer. So we don't have both of those running at full tilt, but right now India is really in there, I think, for some pretty big volumes. So I'm quite friendly. If we have the right amount of precipitation here in Canada, we'll do really well with the volumes and some really solid prices.
Yep.
If it gets too wet, or if it stays too wet or whatever, and then yields are reduced, boy, it could get exciting. Going into the new year. So don't want to bet on that, but it's certainly a possibility.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, great. When it comes to acres in Western Canada for yellow peas, did you see any shift over the last month, or was that kind of baked in?
Hard to say. I didn't hear about much of that, so I don't really know.
Yeah.
StatsCan had back in their March whatever numbers, they had 3.1 million acres. We were already thinking it would be higher than that at about 3.5.
Okay.
So we've kind of already made an adjustment.
Sure. So
yeah.
Okay. I guess we'll get that report towards the end of June. Will be the next update, right? So.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
And then that June report will also break out yellow versus green, and that type of thing. So. Yeah.
Okay. Green peas, I have not paid much attention to them, I guess, lately, but seems kind of quiet for green peas. Is that accurate?
Yeah, on the old crop side, for sure, there's really not much left to buy. The prices are, $19-20 or whatever, but, there might be a couple of bushels trading hands, but really not much. And then on the new crop side, it is holding in and around 14 and a half.
Okay.
And so again, you'll have these things coming together at some point. And I think that case, it's really going to come together at that $14 level. And then could even fade from there.
Sure. Yeah, weather depending here for prairies. Yep. Okay, cool. I got one more for you. This came in through the Pioneer Seeds mailbag. The mailbag just blew up again this week, which is great to see. Most of the questions were around wheat, but I got one here in regards to red lentils. So he says, what are your thoughts on red lentils? 36 to 37 cents. I think that's the price you could get now. Says, does a guy move them and bank the money or hold out for higher prices in the new year, in the new crop? And I am far from an expert or knowledgeable about lentil prices. So, Chuck, what would you tell this gentleman?
What would I tell him? Okay, well, I would start by giving you all of the weather disclaimers, because that's what we do, right? We'd start, well, if the weather, well, no, I'll start with India, actually. And India grew a pretty decent lentil crop that they finished harvesting in March or so, March-ish. And they grew a pretty decent lentil crop, but prices there have really stayed firm, partly because they have a high minimum support price, but also we're starting to see them actually just tick a little higher as well, too. So as some of these pulses in the Indian diet get more and more expensive, anything that's lower priced starts to get lifted along with it. And so I think that's what we're going to see in yellow peas, but it is also having an effect on red lentils as well, too. So we're starting to see those just tick a little bit higher. Okay. And so, of course, they're not going to harvest another crop until next March. The demand has been quiet in the last little while, but I think it's gonna start to warm up as well. There were ideas, and I think those are still legit, that farmers in Russia and Kazakhstan will grow more lentils, both red and green, but that they're looking at really soggy conditions where they grow those crops there too. Okay. To me, the big sorry, I'll just back up one more step. The Australian crop at this point looks pretty good. It's still like early days, but it's off to a decent start anyway. Or the conditions are good for the crop to get going. So now backing up to Canada, it really is. I think the pivot point is: do we get the big disease issues here, or don't we? Can we skate past them this year? If we can, I think we'll see a steady market. I don't know that we'll have a huge rally, but if we have any kind of yield losses because of root rot and that type of thing, I think we're from. So, shorter answer to his short question, 36, 37, and I haven't actually, like, those are probably toward the higher end of what I've been seeing lately.
Okay, sure.
But I would say that's probably, I don't know that we're going to see much downside from there. I don't think there's a lot of downside risk from there. And then if we do have some weather issues and India keeps buying, we still have some room in the short term, like just from a seasonal perspective, we have some room in the short term for the market to turn a little bit softer.
Sure.
But like we were talking before about peas, where you have the old crop prices and the new crop prices, and then they converge. Yeah. On red lentils, they're all ready to get. They've been there. Like this for a long time. So you're not going to see that much of a new crop transition when it comes to red lentils. So I think we're probably steady at this point, and so it's with steady with a chance of some upside if there are any weather problems here.
That's as always great insight, Chuck, and that's all I had for you for questions for this week. Anything else you want to bring up?
The Durum Market still sucks. Okay. How's that?
Let's end it with Durum Market still sucks.
It's just those even though you got smaller crops in North Africa and in Italy and whatever, that Turkish durum and probably Russian and Kazakh durum, more of that coming, is just not going to be good for that market. So right. So I'll end on that cheery note.
I guess if you're a durum grower across the prairies and you are in an area receiving a little excessive moisture, you're going to stay pretty quiet right now anyway, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Is fusarium still, probably shouldn't have said that out loud. I'll have to get the editor to
the
beep
F
that.
word, yeah.
Yeah, beep that out for me. But, you're probably staying fairly quiet, I would think. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, I think in a number of crops, and Durum is one of those, this, we for years or decades, Canada was the show, right? And I think we just have to get used to the fact that we're not the show anymore. We're just part of the whole global picture.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Any speaking engagements coming up? Are you out on the road at all here in June?
No, the summer's going to be fairly quiet that way. I don't think have anything till September, and that's here in Winnipeg. Woohoo.
All right. Yeah. Nice quiet summer for you. Perfect. All right. Well, appreciate it, Chuck. Yeah, great job once again, and look forward to chatting again.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, it's always great to have Chuck join the show, and we'll see if we can convince him to join maybe a little bit more often here in the next month or so as we work through some of these markets and some of these scenarios, because there's a lot. Like, wheat's been kind of the exciting one, but geez, like yellow peas looks darn exciting after that conversation. Lentils is very interesting to me. There's a lot of stuff going on, folks. Hey, financials for 2024, 2025. Hey, we still need the yield, but they might be looking better. All right, next segment is the Mailbag, sponsored, of course, by Pioneer Seeds. This month, we're giving away a Igloo 3-gallon bucket cooler along with a breakaway Bluetooth speaker. And it is the last episode of the month. We have a winner. Jason Wiese, step on down, my friend. You are our winner for the Mailbag for Pioneer Seeds. We will get in contact with you, get you your prize pack. And thanks for the questions, man. You had multiple questions this month, and good on you. Great to see. All right. I just wanted to, there we go. All right. I got a couple different questions that came through. Sorry, my phone's just kind of beeping along here. Lots of action going on this afternoon. There we go. Okay. So my first question actually came in. It was about those red lentils. So Chuck covered that one. So let's move over. The next question was about pricing 2025 crop, which is extremely fitting right now, and obviously a topic close to what my thoughts are. So the question is, what strategies would you recommend to capture any upside if the rally continues, or if we see a significant rally in the spring of 2025? So think about it this way. You're selling some fall of 2025 over a year down the road. The cool thing is that even though you sell at whatever price you're going to get, it's not over. It's not over for that contract. If you have a futures account, you can do stuff there. But, let's say we sold it to Cargill or we sold it to Viterra. And I hear the folks at Viterra are a lot busier talking about these strategies. Not sure if it's the podcast or not, but if you are reaching out to your Viterra to go over this stuff, good on you, because it's going to help your crop marketing. So you're selling for 2025, but it's not over. And here's how. So he's asking for a strategy. And on this rally, the easiest strategy is to add some type of call option. The call option in this scenario has a limited amount of risk. You can do other things that are riskier, but the call option has whatever you pay for that call is your risk. If you spend 25, 30, 40 cents, that's your risk. So here's the example. And I'm going to use some numbers here just because. But let's say I sell spring wheat for fall of 2025 and I get $8 a bushel. It doesn't mean that I have to go and buy a call option off of the fall of 2025. I don't have to go buy September or December of 2025. Those call options would be very, very expensive because there's a lot of time in those call options. But what you can do is you can say, hey, I want to sell that $8 wheat for next fall. I still believe in this rally. I think Ryan is out to lunch on the What the Futures podcast, this thing's going to continue for at least another month. You could actually go and buy a July 2024 call option, add it to that sale that you made for next fall. And, if you bought the call option, you spent 20 cents for an example, and you went and sold it for 50 cents. Well, now your contract is going to be $8.30 a bushel for the fall of 2025. You just made yourself an extra 30 cents buying that call option. Now, let's say the fall happens and you get a harvest low. You can go and say, hey, I think this is the low of the market. I want to buy like a May 2025 call option on wheat. And hey, I'm going to add it to my 830 contract. I'm going to buy a call option and add it again to that one. And you can do that. And if you make anything there, your 830 is now gone up by whatever you've made. So my point here is it's not like one and done. You don't have to say, I just sold $8 wheat and walk away. Say, I sold $8 wheat. I bought a call. I bought a second call. You just can't run multiples at the same time. I'll say that for now to keep it simple. Anyway, we'll keep it at that. But you can go and participate in this market many times on that same contract with the Viterra. Now, I will caution you that you do want to keep good records and keep your paperwork up to snuff. But anyways, that's not that hard to do. But you can add to that, and so you can participate in this year's rally. You can set yourself to participate in next year's spring rally, and you can do it all the way into next summer, all the way until you physically deliver that grain. You can participate in the market. So, Jason, you didn't really ask that part, but what you asked is what strategy. And I just think the call option is the easiest thing. Now, there's different ways to do it. There's different ways that you could do it if you have a broker. But to buy a call with set risk, I think that is the play. Am I buying calls today on wheat? No, I'm not. I feel the market has reached a peak. We need more. Need more out of this market to make a new high. So I'm not buying calls. But that is one way to capture upside. Again, if you say, Ryan, you're totally wrong, market's going higher, that is what you would do. Lock in a floor price, participate in some upside, and away you go. I hope that helps. I hope those tuning in, that gets you thinking a little bit as well. Second, I guess third question of that I wrote down here is, thoughts on, Ryan, what are your thoughts on new crop wheat basis and if we should lock it up, potential rail strike leading into the fall, or should we be patient? So what I'll say about basis, a couple things. Number one, I have not had a lot of success when an event like a rail strike happens or like a fear event happens. I have not had a lot of success where I read that, execute on the fear side of that. So in this case, would be locking up basis because of a rail strike. I've not had success with that. Usually it's not as bad as we think. Situation, repairs, fixes, whatever, moves on. And then something else presents itself, which alters the direction of that basis or that market. So I would not be locking up basis due to a potential rail strike leading into the fall. I would not be doing that. I think what is more important right now, and that could totally be wrong. If we have a rail strike into fall, holy smokes, right? It's going to be brutal, but temporary, and we'll work through it. I just look at countries that export wheat, those supplies being at a lowest value since, I got too many dates in my head. Over a decade, anyway. Was it 13 years? I'll have to look back at a past episode. But I just look at export supply being dwindled, low Canadian dollar, which, I don't know, I'm not bullish Canadian dollar a whole bunch right now. We've had a lot of demand for Canadian wheat this last year or so. I just lean towards, and we also had a futures rally. Futures rally, basis gets generally worse. Now, not at my local G3, they sent out an update this morning saying, hey, futures have rallied and our basis got better. So that was cool. That's not always the case, right? Usually futures rally and basis gets worse, but that's also maybe another signal that basis is it's going the right direction and improving, right? So rail strike, would I lock up basis? No, personally myself, no, I would not. I just think there's enough positives out there to still keep an eye and speculate on your basis moves. Okay. So if you wanted a $2 basis in your area and you're currently a $1.30, I think was what he wrote in there, I would stay patient. I don't know if you'll get your 2, but you'll get, in my opinion, somewhere in between there. All right. Another question here. What happens to basis in a bear market versus a bull market? This question actually, it kind of has multiple layers because, and it goes to this last question as well to some degree, but in a bull market, like if futures are bullish, it doesn't necessarily mean that basis is improving. It might mean that basis is actually getting worse. That's what happens quite often. But if it's a true bullish market with rising futures and rising demand, then basis can certainly improve. In a bear market, you guys remember crop marketing back in like, what was it? 8, 9, 10, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 2007, 8, 9, 10. Like we had terrible futures and terrible basis to some degree, right? We didn't even know what a good basis was yet because we were trying to figure out the post-Canadian wheat board. What the heck is a good basis? I remember we thought back in the day, what was the number? I remember thinking, oh yeah, this is a good basis. And wow, it was so far out to lunch. It was not a good basis. Anyways, we learned a lot here the last, since 2007. So, in a bear market, basis, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to climb either or drop either. Futures are a big part. Demand is a big part. Local situation is a big part. I don't think there's anything that's exactly specific to that. Now, futures, when futures are asking you to store, when they're paying you carry and asking you to store grain, I think this is where this question might have been coming from. It's that futures, when they're paying you to store that grain, that is a bearish signal. That's one bearish signal, to take that grain, store it for another day. Quite often we get to that month and futures are lower. It's one of those bearish signs. Whereas in an inverse market, when futures are the highest today and lower in the future, they want it now. So basis, probably pretty darn good as well. Futures want it. Demand is there. Potentially, basis is probably pretty darn sweet. So I think that's kind of where you're going. But I appreciate the question, and I appreciate you asking to be anonymous on that one as well. I'm all good with anonymous questions, folks. And as you can see, not ripping off a bunch of names here today. We're keeping it a little bit tighter and anonymous. You can say, hey, say my name or keep me anonymous. Doesn't matter to me. Last question, and this is a bit of a shout out again to the Lunchbox crew, but the question was, will the Lunchbox crew help make recs on sales and price futures? I'm currently subscribed to Grain Shark. It's been good. Just thinking about another perspective. And yeah, 100%. The Lunchbox crew, you can head to ryandenis.ca for details, but there will be recommendations in the videos. There will be futures prices to target and look at, levels of support, levels of resistance. That's all going to be in there. So if you want help with recommendations and where to make sales, Lunchbox crew definitely will have you covered there. So keep the questions coming, folks. You can email Ryan at whatthefuturespodcast.ca. Pioneer Seeds is going to give away another cooler and speaker in the next month. I've got my little helper joining me here. Here, Willa, come here for a second. All right, my little helper's here with her dandelion flower bouquet. So I can't convince her to come on camera. There we go. Come on up, kiddo. See if we can get her on an episode here in the near future. But again, thanks to Pioneer Seeds and a great little giveaway here for May, and the same thing coming up here for the month of June. Keep those questions coming in. So now it's time for the UPL latest winner, Batalium. And you guys did a great job. This is our last week of Battalion. You did a great job with the question. We asked, how much does a case treat? How much does a drum treat? And the answer was 40 acres a case, 200 acres a drum. I think everybody basically got it. So that was great. Last week of Battalion. So this case of Battalion, 40 acres, is going to Dion Baczynski from the Mighty Peace region. So it's heading up north. Congratulations, Dion. You won yourself 40 acres of Battalium to spray on that big wheat crop you got coming. And we will get the UPL rep in contact with you. So that wraps up 4 weeks of Battalium giveaways. I did get a picture of someone applying their Battalium this week. They're doing a nice big trial. I'm going to be tuning in to the progress this spring and summer. But hey, spraying a wheat crop on a nice, warm, sunny day sounds fun to me. Of course, next week, we're going to start giving away a product called Wave. Actually, I'm not going to give it away next week, but it'll be the week after because I need some help here. I need someone from UPL to join the show because on the box, I'm looking at it right now, it says aquatic plant extract. And as a grain marketing person, I am going to need some knowledge on what that is. So I'm going to call in the professionals from UPL next week to talk to us about Wave and kick off the giveaway here for the month of June. Again, big thanks to UPL for sponsoring those giveaways. All right, folks, we're just about at the end here. We've got eating your veggies and then closing remarks. Eating your veggies, again, super important here. I spent time this week updating our financial planning program, our harvest profit, right? We've made some tweaks to yield already. We're making tweaks there and also creating the plan for 2025. There's a good chance we're going to make a fertilizer decision here in the next couple weeks for next year. I know you're floored by that, but that's what the market's kind of telling us, to keep an eye out for that. And of course, we have pricing opportunities for 2025. So we started to make that plan. So that's the first one for this week for eating your veggies. The second one, just sell some wheat. 2024, sell some wheat. I hope you get some 2025 sold as well for the fall of 25. Sell some wheat. And my third one is just, tidy up, finish up those old crop sales as well. The 2023 crop. Chuck talked about yellow pea prices dropping off for old crop. I sit here, I don't know if there's, with the exception of those lentils, red lentils, I don't know if there's much to carry over, folks. It might be some canola sales. It might be some barley sales. Whatever it is, it's time to tidy up and finish up old crop if you haven't already. Again, exception being red lentils. And that's about it. Maybe check your targets if we want to throw a fourth in there. Just see what you have outstanding for targets and make sure you know what you got out there. I had a grower I chatted with this morning. They thought they had a target hit, was not the case, and ended up making a wheat sale. They just thought it was done already with that target, but it expired right before a little bump in futures, and they had to make an adjustment there. So anyways, check your targets as well. That'd be my last one for this week. In closing, folks, again, thanks for hanging in there with me on the podcast. I know we talk about a lot of things, and I know I got lots of personal stuff that I get out there as well, but thank you so much for hanging in there. This stuff's recorded before it's sent out by a day or two. So prices, everything could change in the meantime. I know at some point I'm going to say, I'm sorry, the episode was recorded on Wednesday and prices fell before you got a chance to listen. I know that's going to happen yet, but hopefully it's not this week. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, just email me. You know what the email is. Head to the website. If you'd like to connect, sponsor, partner, that's the spot to go to as well, ryandenny.ca. Have a good weekend, folks. Thanks for hanging in there. I'm out.